Hi everybody, it's Alisa Murray here. Hi my sweet lifers. Today I'm hanging out with one of my dear friends, Pradeep. He has 4U Financial Services and we're going to talk about networking and business, and I'm just excited for you to be here on Martini Talks. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So talk to me. How have things been going? Things have been crazy
Good.
with me.
Yeah.
With the businesses all kind of with everything going on, but how have things been with you?
So things have been very good for my business. So I run a financial services practice in Sugar Land, and we are located at the town center. So we're at Sugar Land Town Center. So the last 12 months, I know there's been it's been a challenging period for a lot of people, families, because of the pandemic. But my business has actually picked up, and typically that happens when people are in transition. You know, people want to switch jobs and are looking for a change, or maybe it's a forced change because they're let go and you know they need to go look for something else. And that's when I come in and I try and help provide advice. You know, in some cases people want to consolidate, individuals, families, business owners want to consolidate their assets, and that's where they turn to me for advice. So it has been a good 12 months or 15 months, I guess. My wife does run I'm just going to throw this in, but my wife does run
and she'll be on another Martini Talks at a different time.
And thank you for that.
Yeah.
So she runs a preschool in Sienna Plantation. And so she's had a very challenging last 15 months. Because, you know, most parents stay at home or have worked from home and continue to do so, right? So for them, it's they don't want to have to spend the extra dollars to send their kids to school.
Well, and then, but they do not mind, I guess, the hassle of trying to learn how to homeschool them, because that's a challenge too.
That is a challenge, and then after a while, you know, you want your you want your freedom, you want your own time, right? So, and you want to be able to work, and all these distractions, you know, that, you know, when you do Zoom calls or Teams calls or however you do those calls, you see people, you know, floating in the background, dogs barking, all kinds of noises, you know, that I think it kind of adds to.
We're all in this together.
Makes it more interesting. Yeah, it makes it more interesting. Makes it more human. I think. But at the same time, it's very distracting. Right? So
it's hard. Well, for us, it was kind of an easier transition because I've always been at home. Studio's always been at home. We chose to put the children at Logos Christian, so that's a model for a university model. So they, from itty bitty, they were in school Tuesdays and Thursdays, homeschool Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I was used to the juggle, and the juggle was real, but I was used to the juggle of like, go photograph a baby, check and make sure we're doing spelling, go do another family, check and make sure the math's done. So that's been our world. But James Edward is a senior. We're graduating from high school in just a few weeks.
Congratulations,
so,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's crazy. I cannot believe that, and most of my viewers can't believe it either. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe James Edward's getting ready to be done with high school. It seems like it was yesterday he was this big. So he's actually into stocks. He's been very into stocks and the family business of real estate. And so he has found it very difficult to think about school in the traditional way, which I've mentioned on the channel before with other mommies and daddies, because mother was a nurse and daddy was a doctor, and my grandmother was a teacher. She graduated from East Carolina and taught school. So I'm my grandmother. So his great-grandmother was college educated, which is very unusual. And I came from a family that everybody went to college, and I have a degree as well. So it was like when he announced that he wasn't going off to college, I was like, what's happening here? And then he was like, no, I can take all of my classes on MIT open sourceware, and I can teach myself business, and I already understand the stock market, and I'm busy doing that. And so he's kind of got his little path mapped out. And as long as he's working and he's making money, then, you know, he set up his first LLC as soon as he turned 18. Which is very unusual. And the teachers at school actually sort of looked to him to contribute to their conversations in business math class, because he's just really taught himself a lot of stuff about it. We tease him that he's like the little Warren Buffett, because he's just full of all kinds of details and knowledge about stuff, which I'm sure you and him would enjoy a nice sit down. Because Joe Frankie came in, he's going to be airing on Friday. He's a colonel, and he created a book called LinkedIn for executives in like 5 minutes. It's a really cool little book that he's put together. And he sat here and talked to James Edward about money and math and all that right after he did his Martini Talks. And he's like, oh my God, your son is a said, I know, 80 years old in an 18-year-old's body. I know, it's all good. But so while most families were like crying about the seniors having their final challenges and whatever, I was over there smiling because he's not leaving my nest. And I'm not ready for him to leave my nest anyway. So it's delightful that he's not going to be going off to college, at least not yet. So
that brings up something that I've been working on with a couple of my colleagues or business associates, and it's it's interesting how education has taken a turn, right? Especially with this. And I think the COVID thing has been a catalyst.
For sure.
So the traditional way of learning was, you go to school, you sit in a classroom, and someone teaches you, and it's not as interactive. And so now what's happened is, of course, you have virtual, online, but it tends to be a little more interactive because you are not just interacting with a virtual classroom setting, but you're also interacting maybe in a chat kind of room with other students, or colleagues, or however you do that. And so one of the interesting things is how has that helped the learning process, right? And what we've found is that if you have content, which is something that a lot of, especially the millennials these days, want to be able to do everything themselves. And so if they have access to the content, if there's enough that's available out there in the public domain, and you have some sort of guidance coach, maybe let's just call it coaching, that you can bring in to overlay that content and provide direction and show them the right way, right? Then of course you have a system by which you have metrics, or you'll be able to measure progress, and then maybe there's an incentive or some kind of a feedback loop where you provide encouragement, right? So I think that's kind of the new way, the new tool that's being used now by a lot of online, especially on online learning programs. And so to that point, particularly what I do with wealth management, I'm trying to put together some kind of enough content and provide bring in expertise in terms of advisors or people that can provide that guidance for students, maybe at high school level, maybe even college, that are contemplating a career in financial services, whether it's banking, commercial banking, traditional banking, investment banking, wealth management, all kinds of opportunities out there. And again, these are newer opportunities. So a lot of them were traditional, but now it's kind of the new. So that's something that I just kind of.
No, I'm glad you said that to me, because what came up a couple of weeks ago, it came up again on another Martini Talk that hasn't aired yet, is that I have been talking to everybody about a lot of people who have been in transition, especially through COVID, got laid off. But I talked to you about Carl. You guys already know the Two Chef Show, and Carl's been with me forever, and 7 babies and all that. But to help people figure out where their skills are and what they would do for free. And finding those gifts, and then honing in those gifts, and then helping them think tank what we can do with that to be able to create a job that's a job that they would love to do, and then they can monetize and make money for their family. And most often work from home, or figure out a way to make it grow with employees. Who knows? Haven't run across that yet, but I'm sure that many of the people would be, like Carl, for example, is in a position where 10 years down the road, there's nothing stopping him from opening up several restaurants and having multiple food trucks all the way from here to Austin. I mean, there's nothing stopping him from doing that. He's just got to get the first one figured out and then grow from there. And so my whole thing has been, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, right? Daddy was just so mad whenever I graduated with honors pre-law from U of H, and he was like ready for me to head off to law school, and everybody was like, you're going to be a really good lawyer, and I was like, okay. And then the little girl that was she's not a girl, lady was in 1960 doing the personality test, and she shoved it back at me, and she goes, I'm sorry, but you're not an employee at all. You're an entrepreneur, and I don't care how good your grades are, you will be fine in corporate America, but you won't be happy. You need to go home and create your own company. And so I've always been an entrepreneur. I've never really worked for anybody ever. I had a couple odd jobs in high school, but not like the traditional way.
Right.
And so all these people that have come to see me through the years, there's been a resonating sort of theme that's run through their stories is that they were so miserable. Whether it would be couldn't move up or got moved up to position they really weren't personality-wise fit to, and now they've been given an opportunity, forced because of layoff, to have to figure out something different. And so one of the things that I'm developing, and it'll be launched this fall, is mentorship and coaching through helping entrepreneurs finding their gifts, people who want to become entrepreneurs, much like James Edward.
Right.
And I really solidified that with another lady that came in, that she's also a coach, that I originally thought it was going to be older people, like people that are our age, that have children, we're already established, we already have businesses, we might want to add another business to it.
Sure.
But I'm kind of thinking that what really needs to be there, for me anyway, is my gift to the world now, is to show these young kids, because they're coming to me and saying, oh my God, Auntie A, I want to learn how to do not photography, but whatever that thing is, right? But I don't know how to start a business. And so I'm developing courses to help people do that. So if there's any way that you and I can connect or collaborate, I'd love to. I mean, y'all know I don't do money. I don't do math. That's the one subject that Auntie A doesn't do. I can do a lot of things, but I don't do math. And so that's what we have Uncle Brian for. And 30 years of marriage, that's a good thing, that we're exactly 50-50 on all of it. And whatever I'm really good at, he is really not, and vice versa. And so I just don't do the numbers. But I think that teaching people that, and the other thing is teaching people how to have financial freedom. And there's a lot of people out there that are in our age group that are not financially free. They're actually suffocating. And I don't know if it's because they wanted to keep up with the Joneses, maybe, or if they just took on more than they could take care of. I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey, and so it's kind of like, if you can't pay for it, don't get it.
Right.
And I'm sure you have that same kind of talks with people a lot with your client base. It's just hard, because we're in a society where everybody just wants to get it right now, and they are not in that mindset that my grandparents were in, where they pay cash for everything. If they didn't have the money, there was no credit card debt, because they just didn't have a credit card. And they didn't need one. I mean, they had 2 houses and they had cars paid for. Everything was fine. But they didn't have the debt. And so it's interesting to me that there's a lot of people in our age group, and then a lot of people simultaneously in James Edwards' age group, the millennials, and he's really not a millennial, 18. So I think he's just underneath that. He's in that
Gen
next
Z,
group. They don't want anything to do with that. I mean, they're pinching every penny. They're watching what they spend. They're like, the idea of not going to college is like, if I was going to need a piece of paper to go take it to an employer, to be hired to be an employee, I could see spending the money for this education. But I already know that I'm going to be in this business, and I already know how to do this business. I'm not going to spend the money for that, because that's going to put me into debt, and I could make that money make more money. And so they're way smarter in the way that they're thinking.
Yeah, I believe so. And in fact, what's interesting is, Alicia, you brought this up, but it's Financial Literacy Month, April Financial Literacy Month.
I did not know that.
So this is perfect, the perfect timing to talk about that, because I think you find that there's a lot of people that, you're right, I mean, they spend way too much, a lot more than they can afford, right? So, but on the other hand, what's interesting is the new generation, which is the millennials, which is now the largest group in the United States, and starting to look that way outside the United States as well, and the generation that follows that, which is the Gen Z, a lot more frugal. They're a lot smarter about how they spend money. And I think it's who was it that said, I think it was Mark Cuban that said, if there's 3 things that you should do, the number one thing, the most important thing that you should do is not use credit cards, because that's how you end up spending a lot more than typically what you can afford. So I agree with that. And I think that's important to increase awareness for individuals and families. That's very, very important. But we're already starting to see those signs with the next gen, and I think that's great. I think that's that's the way that
Yeah.
They learn, and it gives them the opportunity to be able to make
start up on the right foot. I mean, that's the thing, because if you find yourself drowning in debt now, Daddy, of course, I mean, any doctor, right? Very few people have the money in the family to pay for med school without borrowing money. And he had the GI Bill, so there's a little bit of a help there. But I mean, I remember there was a long time, and many of my mommies and daddies in the client base are doctors. And there's a long time to pay off that education. I mean, it's a long, and the first thing they do and can do, and you know this because of what you do, is the banks are willing to throw at them way more money than the average person can get. Like way more money, because they know that they can command that salary. And then they find themselves owing a bunch of money on their school and paying off all the med school and whatever. And then they have this huge mortgage that is huge, like, in comparison to
and it's just a snowball effect, right? It just keeps growing and growing and growing, and at some point you can't afford to even pay the interest. And then you just go into foreclosure with your home, or you have to deal with creditors, and you just have to,
it's
you're just
not
in the
good.
You're just in a hole, and it's a mess.
And
so you definitely don't want to start on that.
No. And I think it's really interesting that I see Daddy did that. Daddy was in that circle, and there was never, even when he passed away, there was stuff that still needed to be paid off, and life insurance policies would pay for such and such. And he was not planned. He was a planned person. But it was always stressful. I remember him coming home after delivering babies all day, and there was one day or two a month that he would come into the kitchen table, and there would be all these bills, and he would be screaming and yelling about malpractice insurance costing this much money, and oh my God, how much did y'all do on electricity? And then there was a family vacation to have to plan for, and there's 5 of us. So you can and 5 college degrees that he wanted everybody to have. So, and he was going to pay for, by God. So it was a lot of unnecessary stress. And I think that's the other thing too, is these kids these days, and a lot of them have learned it from other people. They've also learned it from me when they've been here to see me, is that, I've done what I love, right? I'm photographing babies and families. They asked me to get real estate licensed again, so I did, to help them. They asked me to open up the travel to help them, so I did that. I've been helping, and my tribe is who's dictating to me what they would like for me to help them do. But I'm not working. I'm not working in that stressful environment, and stress kills you.
It does.
It does.
That's the number one killer. And I just wanted to add to what we just talked about, which was that most Americans spend more time planning their next vacation than they do planning their retirement. And I think that
is a problem.
It's a big problem. And I think they need to, most people don't have, they just need to time block it. They need to be able to spend that time with whoever their advisor is, whoever they feel is trustworthy, to be able to plan out their future.
And that's the thing too. I mean, we planned it so that we would be, by the time James Edward graduates, which is again in a few weeks, in a position so that we would be able to be semi-retired. Now, I will never retire. All of y'all know that. Y'all know my personality. I ain't the person that can sit around and just knit in the corner with the cat. I'm not that person. I'm going to have to always be doing, but it's not about making money. It's about helping others.
And you love what you do.
But people are like, what? You're 51 and what? I'm like, you just have to think through what you're doing. And it's something that needs to start young. So I'm going to start sending you all of my babies, as soon as they graduate from high school, because they need that conversation to happen early, so they understand the value of money, how money grows, how money works, what not to do, what to do, because it's not an unusual thing to me to be able to say, okay, I'm kind of quasi-retired at this point. But for most people, that's not the case.
And I agree. And I think the content that I'm trying to put together with, like I said, bringing advisors that can grow at a higher level, if you will, is going to be almost like a self-study type, where you don't have to depend on a single person or a time, so you can do it on your own. And I think that's important, and that's the way they learn. I think that's a better learning process than, like I said, the traditional way of learning, which is the classroom kind of setting. So. where it's you're on a schedule.
You have to be there at that time. And
exactly.
No.
Yeah.
That way everybody can just pop in when they want to. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the masterclass stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with masterclass.
Yes,
I just love it. I've been a member for so many years. And everything that I've ever experienced in those classes from those different, they've gotten so big now from where they were before. It was just a few people when I first started, and now there's so many. But it's really cool because, everybody's got their different path on how they get there.
Right.
But you need help if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. And
that's where you come in. So I'm excited about having you right around the corner because all my people are right around the corner too. And I'm just going to be sending you a bunch of people.
And that's the best part of what I do is to be able to help and give back to the community. So, and again, it doesn't have to be always for money. I mean, it's just my, being able to give my time and spend, and just the satisfaction of being able to help families and business owners.
Yeah, it's the same as me. I mean, we've got the same mindset, which is why he's on my Martini Talks, by the way, because, we do see the same things the same way. I mean, I did breast cancer calendars for 10 years for the community and kids cancer calendars for 7 and went to India and photographed the children in the orphanages there for Nick and Nina Desai. They're both doctors in the community in Sugar Land, and they have an endowment there. And I, they just said, hey, Auntie, we need you to go to India. And I was like, no hesitation. In the middle of July, which is hot as Hades. I saw cobra snakes and all kinds of cool stuff. They made sure I was entertained while I was there too. But it was just really interesting. But I was able to bring back a lot of wonderful photos and give back to the community in that way as well. And this is the next thing. The next thing is really these kids are changed forever. Yeah. They've been ripped out of schools. They've not had schedules. They've learned how to adapt. They don't really like the whole have to be in the classroom anymore because they've gotten a taste of the sweet life. Exactly. Plug that in. And, they want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be on their own. They've seen their mom and daddy, their families, be laid off. And they don't want that for themselves either. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of new entrepreneurs. I think we're going to see a huge surge.
I think so. And that's the backbone of this country, right? You've got 30 million people that are business owners. And I think that's just going to grow from here. I think that is going to be just an amazing opportunity for everyone to benefit from. Yep. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're someone that works with entrepreneurs, I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I had slated you for way long from now because we have so many Martini Talks that have been taped. But since it's April still, and Friday is coming up, the last Friday in April, I think it's the 30th this week.
Yeah, it's actually my oldest daughter's birthday.
Oh, well, tell her that I said happy birthday. She'll have to watch us. I'm going to go ahead and put us on for Friday so that we can hit that literacy for financial literacy, because it's important for people to understand. I had another daddy that came in, he's a PhD, and he wrote a book about the last 10 days of Jesus, and I scooted him up to Good Friday because it was totally appropriate content for the time. And so I want to go ahead and do that for you as well. And I'm going to have, as always, in the episode comments below, everything that you need on how to get a hold of you and how to get a hold of me if you want to try to be on the show, if you've got another business that you're interested in trying to promote as well.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And listen, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate your invite, and it was good to be on the show and good to talk to you.
Yeah, same here. And I'll be sending you some people. Okay. And I also look forward to meeting your wife, and we're going to feature the school as well.
That would be great.
So you guys will have to watch for that too. Listen, you're welcome. If you found any value in this Martini Talks, please do us a favor, both of us, and like and share. And don't forget to ring that bell. And we'll see you soon on another Martini Talks. Take care.